Okay. This year's most notable turbo bomb, The Flash, releases on HBO's Dead Cousin tomorrow, and I thought it would be interesting to go over my thoughts before and after I watched the movie. While I couldn't escape some of the videos of the awful CGI this movie contains, I still don't really know what this movie's about, other than there's Batman and Superman and Supergirl in it, but nothing much else. Also, I know that it was a super big bomb. Now, I don't want to go into this super cynical, even though I should given my DC track record, but this is DC, and I am now convinced that I am in an abusive relationship with this fucking studio, hoping that they release something actually good instead of disappointing me on an unbelievably consistent basis. And I am being serious when I say I haven't seen this movie in its entirety. I thought maybe it would be a good idea to see it in theaters, but then it bombed, and my HBO subscription better give me something at this point, so I just waited far longer than I should have for it to release on there, and here we are now. So, what am I expecting? Well, if I had to guess from what I've seen in promotional materials and Elon Musk's terminally ill money sink, I would think that the first act has something to do with Barry not being happy with the world he lives in, or he feels that he's missing something that his mother would give him. He discusses this with first act Batman, portrayed by Benny Boy here, and then he sets out on his time travels, kicking the story off. The second and third act will probably consist of stupid shenanigans between this Nightmare Blunt rotation and then the second and third act Batman, portrayed by Mike and Ike's here. They save Supergirl and then head off into the third act in a desert. And then for that final battle, there's going to be a big boom boom McShooty gunfight, and Michael Shannon probably gets to go insane like we love him doing, and then they all probably go back to the way the story was before. My guess is that there's too much time dedicated to the cameos and stupidity that the Flash's character will either leave this timeline without an arc or with a cheap dollar store arc that makes him feel somehow more hollow than he was before. And then in the end, it won't fucking matter because James Gunn is going to salvage the crippled horse that is DC and help it into a new era that isn't so polarizing as these movies have been. So, that's what I think is going to happen. I shall report back when the movie is done. So now, I am currently writing this portion of the video 2 days after I watched The Flash. I don't really know how to start this. It's definitely not what I expected, and not really in a good way. I'll try to explain. Okay, so for the whole movie, it's just constantly rushing from second one. Even the logos are double speed. We open on an action scene that's so desperately trying to keep the Snyderverse fanboys on board that it kind of just falls flat in the process, ruined by uneven and frankly unfinished CGI and a feeling of unfamiliarity with the characters that I should know at least a little bit by now. It has some okay moments action-wise, but those are mostly with Batman, which is a problem when you're setting out to make a Flash movie. The Flash looks awful in his suit. It really can't be ignored. It's so obviously either fully CG or a practical suit covered in CG because it just loses all feeling of realism. It really should have just stayed in the design stage for a little longer because this just looks like a shitty muscle suit you buy for like $35 and still doesn't fit or look good. I honestly didn't expect the character of Iris, played by Kiersey Clements, to be included, even though she's like on the cast list and she's apparently important. So how is she? I mean, she's fine. She's doing her best. To be honest, I don't really know how good of an actress she is because this is the only thing I've ever seen her in, but she really does seem very stiff and possibly uncomfortable in her scenes with Ezra Miller, who is equally as rough in their shared scenes. The odd thing about this is that Andy Muschietti seems to be pretty good at directing actors when you look at like the It movies, right? Maybe there was just a rough day on production and they just never went back to reshoot it. Whatever, it's not the biggest thing in the world with this movie. It's like a few scenes. Ezra is actually pretty good later on in the movie as well, but we'll get to that. In their scene together, Iris brings up that Barry's dad is up for a hearing, which is convenient, but I'm not going to knock something for convenience right now. Not wanting to skip a beat and linger with this character in his world for a little bit, we immediately jump to Barry reminiscing at his old home and remembering what happened. I think this is a pretty good scene. I just wish that we maybe began the movie with like a fragmented version of this, and then later we get to the same point in the movie and perhaps he explains what happens to a reporter, maybe like Iris, and then he maybe goes home and is shown really, really missing and wondering what his life could have been had his mother lived. Or perhaps he has a dream of his mother doing something fairly, boring, banal, whatever. And then he wakes up in the middle of the night and goes to the house, actively wondering what would have happened if she lived. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. So then we have this stupidly paced scene where Barry goes back in time, and just to comment on it right now, I kind of don't have an issue with the visuals of the Speed Force Coliseum thingy other than the putty people. It's kind of a cool idea to run through time without doing it in like a straight boring line. Then my annoyance is peaked when we back out of it instead of diving head over ass, which would set up Barry for an additional arc of actually taking responsibility for his actions and thereby putting more weight on his shoulders later instead of having like an I told you so type of thing, So he talks with Ben Affleck, who just doesn't seem to care anymore, and Benny Boy is like, don't do it, but he will, so we're just wasting time and story. Barry has a millisecond to talk again with Iris, which in my opinion is probably only in the movie to set up his apartment in the alternate timeline, but I digress. Barry returns to the house and then ends up running back in time where he gets kicked out of the speed whatever, which is a cool idea, and I'll return to that in a little bit. So now we're in the past and we have the Barry's meeting and whatnot, and while I think it's a cool idea, I think it could have worked better with a retooling of the script. I really think that Barry should have done something to the other Barry, like tying him up and then tries to step into other Barry's footsteps, something a little bit more sinister. Perhaps as an arc, we see some kind of growing calamity ravaging the Earth as Barry can't seem to figure out why there is such a catastrophe until realizing that he created it with his time travel. But no, this isn't that movie, is it? Well, we have to get to the cameo man-baby garbage, don't we? Okay, let's go. So the Barrys go to get Barry his powers because Barry went back in time to when this movie was announced, and Barry hasn't gotten powers yet. In the process of giving Barry powers, Barry loses his. So then we have another bullshit side quest to prolong the movie. Afterwards, scenes from Man of Steel are retooled, and we have some dumb flashbacks to when the Flash tried to save someone from the Whoomp Whoomp thingy in Metropolis, which, I don't know, man. This decision retroactively makes Man of Steel's finale feel less special because there's at least one other superhero that also could have helped instead of Superman's one-man army. So then they try to form the Justice League, but because it's a different timeline, it's a lot easier to write yourself out of just making a Justice League movie because these superheroes are either nowhere to be found or just don't exist. It's a really great idea, actually. So, Barrys, what are you going to do now? God fucking damn it. Okay, so we have Batman, portrayed by Mike and Ikes here, acting the worn out old Batman, except he's not tired because he's been fighting crime. He retired because Gotham's all good now? Yeah, so in this universe, Gotham is like a peaceful place that's not crime-ridden. So there's a question that arises with this. Why did he become Batman in the first place? If Gotham is so coolio now, what drove him to become Batman? But forget that, we have to get moving and find someone to fight Zod. Now, hold up, wait a second, hold on. We now have to play coy about Supergirl's involvement, because it's not very obvious from the marketing material that this is in fact Supergirl instead of Superman in this universe. Oh. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just go fuck myself. So, we fuck off to Siberia with Batty Man on the nostalgia dildo to find Superman. But then, to nobody's surprise, it's actually Supergirl. Oh, God, woman. This fight is pretty cool and all, but why does Batman close his fist like he's giving the attack signal to Supergirl? As far as I know, these two people do not know each other at all, and in the context of the movie, that is the case. Forget it, we have to rush, otherwise we can't waste enough time to get to the 2.5 hour mark. So then we fly back to Malfoy Manor and have some downtime. Supergirl ditches them in a move that's kind of cool, where she has a bad experience with humanity and a reversal of Superman's good experiences. Perhaps in an alternate timeline, this would trigger Supergirl to become the villain, and they have to stop her. Shut up, you know it's DC, stop dreaming. So then we have the finale, which is a half-baked setup where Supergirl realizes that Zod is there to kill her or something. It's not really fleshed out because she's introduced at the end of the fucking movie. Supergirl comes back and gives Barry some help with his erectile his powers. She gets him his powers back. And then, with a truce setup and probably 30 seconds of screen time, no, I will not check, it's off to the finale races. So then at some point, Barry gets annoyed at Barry for not taking this shit too seriously, which is cute enough of an idea, but really fucking bothers me when you think about the fact that Barry doesn't really know Barry, and neither of the Barrys know Supergirl at fucking all, but this train's already half derailed now. Let's just sit back and watch $200 million fucking burn. So we arrive at the finale, where Zod has started a war with the US military over something, whose $800 billion budget can't really keep up with sci-fi weaponry, because Raytheon decided they needed a bigger bonus that year. But hey, this level of tragedy will get enlistment numbers up in the future, so I guess it's a loss then a win. So, then Batman drops Barry, and Supes off at the designated location of the finale. Where is this end battle set? Well, you guessed it. It's set in a Gmod sandbox with slightly above average CG models, reused from Man of Steel, of course. We get some bullshit with Barry and Barry who just try to kill people, but at this point, I just don't care. Why do we need an apocalypse that's so fucking shallow? Just skip to Kryptonian-controlled Earth to show the gravity of the situation. Oh, fuck it, why do I even bother anymore? So they're like, yeah, let's get these guys, and then this bitch dies, and that bitch dies, and they're like, fuck, we gotta try again, and then we repeat, one bitch, two bitch, dead bitch, dead bitch.
That doesn't rhyme at all.
Then we go back in time for the third time of the finale, and Barry finally realizes that it's unwinnable. Barry won't accept that, so he's like, I have to try. Barry, realizing the astronomical fuck-up he made, vows to go back in time and allows his mother to die. The weird bitch who evicted his ass from the is lamely revealed to be Barry, not to be confused with Barry. It's a really cool idea that not Barry, but Barry goes insane trying to save his Earth, but it's so rushed and predictable that you're just like, oh, that's him? Fuck it, whatever. And then Barry saves Barry by jumping in front of Barry's arm blade, which causes Barry and Barry to die because Barry is just Barry's future self. Are you having fun now? So then we just have Barry left, and he goes back in time, vowing to allow his mother to die. You'd think that at this point in the movie, after all the shit that we've been through, from here to the end, this would be a home fucking run. I genuinely thought that at this point in the movie, this was Barry's mom from the alternate timeline around the time that Barry met Barry, but then I thought a little more and I don't care anymore. Barry then has a rushed and underbaked emotional resolution, which could have been boosted by some kind of callback or something. I don't fucking know at this point. I've probably put more effort into writing this thing than Warner Brothers did. That's not to say that they don't deserve fair compensation for the movie. It was just fucked from the beginning. So there we have it. Barry lets go of his mother and returns to the present, learning his lesson, not to fuck with God fucking damn it, Barry, there was a lesson to learn here. Why did you continue to fuck with the timeline? You know it'll just fuck it up. God, why? Why do I do this to myself? Jesus Lord. So, even after this stupidity, this fucking stupidity, then we have this cute ending scene where Barry gets his wish of getting his dad out of prison. Except for the fact that everything he learned in this movie was just shot in the back of the head and teabagged for good measure, dying out in the dark, cold Gotham rain. It's pretty decent. Until it isn't. Until it fucking isn't. Because if there's one thing this movie doesn't know how to do, it's to pull some fucking restraint. We have to have one more fucking cameo, bitches. We have George Clooney Bruce Wayne, showing more life than Ben Affleck has in every single movie that he has been in this universe combined. Get out of a car because, haha, that's funny. He's the Batman from the god-awful one. And even after the butchering of the lesson Barry needed to learn from the movie, at least they could end on a funny haha. But no, DC just can't end a fucking movie correctly, can they? Because after a perfectly viable option to just cut to credits, right after Barry very comedically says, who the fuck is this? We hold on him for even longer, and then we have that uncanny fucking tooth falling out, and then the credits roll. Jesus, even in the fucking home stretch, this movie doesn't know how to fucking work. And that is The Flash. Get your popcorn, everyone. Warner Brothers is losing a fortune of tax dollars for us. So, what's the lesson here? Restraint. You know what could have happened if they had some fucking restraint? They could have had a movie entirely about and starring only the character it's named after. What if they just one-to-one adapted Flashpoint? The story is already there. The characters are already there. That's what the movie was supposed to be in the first fucking place, right? Why not stick with it? I cannot believe that this movie is almost 2.5 hours long, and yet there is only enough time to give Barry a half-baked arc, not about learning to live with the timeline he inhabits, but to let go of his mother, but then still break the rules of time. Even if it's not Flashpoint exactly, have the worlds collide in an interesting way, like some bizarro shit showing up in the middle of Central City or whatever, instead of showing balls bashing into each other. It's so frustrating to see the good movie in here, but God, there was so much time wasted and lost to dumbass ape-brain cameos, which leads me to the statement I finally landed on, which I may be paraphrasing. I don't know, and I don't have the mental capacity to look for it at this point. The Flash is trying so hard, so unbelievably fucking hard, to be a movie for everybody. From the reminiscing on Zack Snyder's DCEU corpse, to the Justice League tone, to the soulless feeling of Michael Keaton coming back just to get the over 40 crowd in the theater. And the fucking quotes. God, the fucking quotes. I didn't have anywhere to put it in, but God, the fucking quotes with no motivation. Jesus fucking Christ. Make up your own goddamn mind. Do you want to fucking suck off Batman right here in front of me? Do you want to fuck that movie? Do you want to fuck 1989 Batman?
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Fuck you.
If they had any semblance of competency, they would have either, one, retooled the script to account for these shoehorns in a meaningful way so that they aren't just blatant cash-grabby cameos, or two, realized it was a bad idea and abandoned the cameo fest for a focused movie. But no, they ignore common sense, and in doing so, they stretch themselves so thin that they end up bludgeoning pieces of the movie that were perhaps once good into the mold of something that looks and sounds like a movie, but utterly fails at connecting its audience to the story, thereby making the journey we take all the more irrelevant and rendering it a useless piece of entertainment. That's not to say it wasn't devoid of entertainment. There were some bits that were genuinely funny and cool, but the end product comes off so poorly thought out and rushed, despite its 10-year production cycle, that it winds up not making any logical sense why anyone would give it the all clear. I watched this with my mom, who knows jack shit about movies, aside from surface level stuff. And when she learned of its $200 million budget, she asked me, who the hell would approve such a thing? God, it's so fucking embarrassing and honestly a little heartbreaking to see something with such promise and imagination behind it slide off the road into the ditch, catch fire, and burn a fucking island. I so fucking called it though.